All right. Today's guest is the accomplished Dr. Wendy Labat, who is a financial healer and CEO of The Financial Cure. She is a business strategist, international speaker, and the best-selling author of the Financial Cure's book series, Diagnose Your Financial Health and the Optimize Your Financial Health. And she's the producer of the award-winning global streaming production of Financial Cures. So, Dr. Wendy, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Tracy. I'm glad to be here. I appreciate you having me.
All right. So, my mission is to help entrepreneurs to live their legacy life, which is aligning your divine message to your purpose driven goals so you can reach millions and achieve financial freedom. Tell us a bit about your background and what the mission is in your business.
Well, I'll kind of share my story if I may. I started my entrepreneurial journey over 4 decades ago. I can't believe I'm saying 4 decades. But it was a time where I didn't have any money, I didn't have any business experience, and it was a time where there was no, internet or social media, and the only thing you can do with a cell phone was make an expensive phone call. And back then, in order to be considered, I had corporate clients and government agencies as my clients. So in order to be considered as a serious business, you had to have, the brick and mortar, the employees, carry inventory and all the overhead that goes with it. And I did that. But like I said, I was a rookie entrepreneur. So that was an expensive feat to keep that image up. And eventually, I suffered some financial ills like the anorexic income, obese debt, mindset, knowledge deficiency. But I learned, the hard way, and I overcame those things. But in 2014, the government mandated that everybody have health insurance. So I expanded my business to include insurance and financial services. So I bought all the products and services I was selling to my clients because they were asking me, well, what do you have? Where's your money? And I could, honestly say what I had and where my money was. So in 2017, I was diagnosed with a very aggressive form of breast cancer. So I'm like, okay, breast cancer, you want to be aggressive? I'm going to be aggressive in my treatment. But that meant chemotherapy every 3 weeks for a year. I had 5 surgeries, all the CAT scans, MRIs, mammograms, x-rays, everything that it took to conquer the disease. And my, mind and body took a beating. I had chemo brain where I couldn't remember what I said, what I was about to say, or what I was going to say. And then I lost all my hair, my brows, my lashes, literally my fingernails and my toenails. And one good thing about that is I saved a fortune on not having to get my hair done every week and, not to get manicures and pedicures and waxing, but still, I don't know if that was, I guess what was worth it. But, I ended up amounting almost $1.5 million worth of medical bills. But thank God I practiced what I preach because my health insurance paid all that. So, not in addition to that, I had some other supplemental policies that paid me multiple 6-figure tax-free shots in the arm, financial shots in the arm. So I was able to work on my recovery and not worry about money. Because can you imagine having $1.5 million worth of medical expenses plus your business expenses plus your personal expenses while you're battling breast cancer? So it was, it was a journey. But once I rang that bell and I was cancer free, I said, Lord, thank you. I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm wealthy, I'm in my comfort zone, I am good. And he's like, no, I brought you out this journey better than you went in so that you can go on a crusade to empower other people to not let an illness or injury ruin them financially. You're going to, show folks how to take control of their finances, become financially free, and live the life they desire. So I'm on my crusade.
I love hearing that. And first of all, I'm so sorry to hear about that and that you had to go through this. I've had my mom, I've watched her experience that and go through it, and I know it's extremely difficult. And being up here, right now I'm in Canada. I was the last 22 years in California, but I
Mhm.
must say a major worry I always had was healthcare, right? Like in Canada, we come up here and it's free. right?
Yeah.
Down there, all I kept hearing was the stories of, hey, we were financially secure. We were ready for our retirement. And then a health crisis hit and it's gone. They're wiped out. So it is really good to know that although you had to go through something as horrific as that, and to really have it be part of, thank goodness you had yourself set up so well. I mean, it's so great to hear stories like that instead. And I'm glad that you can assist others in that, because particularly I believe in the US, it's almost a mandatory education that people need. And thankfully you do that. I remember when my husband was turning, I guess, 65. And all of a sudden, we didn't know like that he was supposed to have these certain things in place. We actually got penalized for him being a year late for getting into this Medicare, I guess it was.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
education in this is so important. We're never taught things like this. We see all the promo, but it means nothing without the context.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I really, as far as this, give me an example if you have one, because we believe that like success is not just measured by our own personal achievements, but by creating that lasting and positive impact that we have, that it sounds like exactly you have done. What's maybe a success story where you've really taken somebody and either had them all yay set up or prevented something from happening?
Well, I've got, matter of fact, I just have one of my clients call me a couple of days ago. Her husband, just got this big, position, and I already had them on a nice plan. They got 3 kids, so it's a total of 5 of them. They got a real decent premium. So she said, well, we're thinking about going with his employer plan. So I said, okay. She sent me the information. I looked at it and I told her which was the best plan for them, because people think because it's an employer plan that it's going to be perfect, or it's going to be, what they need. But I let them know, and I let all my clients know, no matter what plan you're looking to choose, but especially employer plans, the first thing you want to look at is the deductible. Because if you have a high deductible, you got to meet that threshold before the insurance even kicks in. So people get these $5,000 and $10,000 deductibles, not realizing that they're going to have to pay up to that threshold before the insurance even kicks in. So because the deductible they were looking at was 14,000. It's like, no, you're not going there. I already had them on a zero deductible plan. It's like, you don't want to go there. Then the second thing you want to look at are your co-pays, because you don't want to get a percentage copay. You want to go with something that's $20, $30, or whatever is set already. You don't want to, have one that's 20% of whatever it is, because, the doctor's bill could be $1,000. Then you're left with having to pay 20% of that. And then the next thing is the maximum out of pocket. And that's, the threshold you reach. Once you reach that, everything's covered at 100%. You can have brain surgery and you won't have to pay anything more than your premium. And the last thing to consider is the premium. People get so caught up on trying to get a cheap premium, and they get the high deductible, and then they're complaining because they're spending all this money for medical care, not realizing that's what they chose. So they ended up, not going with the employer plan because it just was ridiculously high, and then sticking with what they already had. So, people have to understand how it works, what the priorities are that you need to look at. And just because it's employer coverage doesn't mean it's the best coverage. So, people get caught up in that. And matter of fact, 60% of people file bankruptcy because of, health medical bills, and 80% of them had health insurance. So you have to understand, how everything works and position yourself to get the best results in case something happens. Because if you're sick, you don't want to be thinking about how much is going, the bill is going to be, or I can't get this test because I can't afford to pay it. You don't want those kind of worries. You want to say, hey, whatever it takes, give it to me, and not worry about the cost.
Absolutely. You had so many nuggets in there that I'd like to take a look and unpack some of that.
Okay.
So, first of all, um, when an employer perhaps says, "Hey, you're covered, we got you with health insurance," You brought up a great thing. Okay, that's good. Is there a way for them to negotiate that health insurance, or are they just simply better to say, look, I see that, but you know what? I have it over here. I'm fine.
Well, not necessarily negotiate, but a lot of times employers gives them options. So, like with this couple, they had four, they had plan A, B, C, and D. And plan A had this high deductible, plan B had a high deductible, wasn't as high as A. Plan C had a moderate deductible, and plan D had a zero deductible, which I told them to go ahead and go with that one. And the premium she thought was we thought, looking at the numbers on on the sheet, was $800 a month. And I told her for a family of five, that's not bad, zero deductible and minor co-pays and lower max out of pocket. I said, this is a pretty good plan. But then she called me back. This last conversation we had a couple of days ago, she said, that plan we thought was going to be $800 is $1,800 a month. It's like, no, I mean, you all do what you want to do, but I kind of broke it down to her and looked at it. She pays $1,800 a month. That's like almost $22,000 a year in premiums alone. So, I said, if you all want to pay that, it's up to you. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I'm going to tell you the pros or cons of doing that. So, I just let them know that you have to really, evaluate what's best for your family. And there are, like I said, options, usually more than one plan to choose from. But the law in the US, since in 2014, the employee, they usually give them, dirt cheap insurance, which is mostly pretty good. But if they want to add on a family, that's when it skyrockets. So, they ended up staying with what they had, and I don't think that they had to take that. I know they didn't have to take it, so they chose not to. So, there are options outside of employer coverage, but people are so, set that thinking that it's a comfort zone to have employer coverage, but it's not always the case. So that's what I recommend, that people look at what their options are. But a lot of times you really can't negotiate it, but there are options to choose from.
So that's very interesting, but it brought to mind, you mentioned employer a lot. What about somebody like myself, right? I remember when I had to start paying for, well, because it was mandated all of a sudden, right? We had to have health insurance. And so it was, for us, it was like almost a $1,500 a month policy. It was like paying rent for something I didn't plan on using, right? And so do you deal with small businesses as well? And what does that look like?
Well, really, the law has changed since then. There is no mandate now to have health insurance. They got rid of that, thank God, because people were underinsuring themselves just to have the coverage. And people have to understand, especially if you're going with a marketplace plan, and that's what they call that, a marketplace plan, where they'll help you pay the premium. I mean, the premiums are what they are, but you'll get a subsidy based on your household size, which is, who you file on your tax return, not who lives in your house, but who you file on your tax return, your zip code, and income. And the income is not your gross income. A lot of people, especially I have some clients that get all caught up and they want to throw out this big number that they make. I'm making $100,000. Like, well, how much are you bring? What's your adjusted gross? And it's really a modified adjusted gross income, but it's really a projected income when you're doing the application. But what it reconciles when you file your taxes for that year, which is, January of the next year. And that's when everything reconciles. And they do have like a penalty, if you overestimate, you'll pay more, pay whatever you weren't supposed to get that you got. If you underestimate, then, they'll give you more in your refund, but you do have to stay on the grid. Now, if you go beyond that, there's a flat fee penalty, and it changes every year. I think this year is like $3,000. So I tell my clients, now look, do you want to pay? For one, let's look at your real income. What we're going to project. And I recommend if they don't have a business, start a business, not to make money, but to get those expenses. And what are you going to pay monthly based on this income. And at the end of the year, if you go over, you'll pay a little more. But, do you want to pay a high premium throughout the year, or do you want to just pay a more affordable premium? And at the end of the year, when you file your taxes, or the next year when you file your taxes, just bite the bullet, because it's usually mathematically cheaper to bite the bullet than it is to pay the high premium throughout the year.
Yeah, very interesting. And so, how do you, I'll say, get paid? Like, can anyone come to you and say, "Man, I don't understand this health thing. Can you help me?" And if so, is that a fee, or is that somehow covered through who represents?
The insurance company pays me. I'll
Great.
explain it to you, and whether you sign up with me or not, because that's, like I say, I'm on a crusade. So I'm
Hmm.
empowering people. I'm not going to let medical bills ruin them financially, because I've seen it happen too many times. So there's no fee to me that they have to pay. The insurance company pays me, for enrolling them in their particular
Hmm.
program.
Hmm. I absolutely love this. It makes it so accessible for somebody to have a resource like yourself and say, I can't figure this out. Can you help me? I remember we were completely lost. I wish I'd have known somebody like you. If you're watching this podcast now, definitely make an appointment with Dr. Wendy, even if you think you know what you're doing and you have a policy in place, because as she said, people didn't understand the premiums, the different levels, all of these nuances that, people like ourselves would completely be oblivious to because it's not our area of expertise. So it has been such a pleasure really finding out more about what it is that you do. How will people get in touch with you now that they've seen this?
Okay, well, I have one more point I'd like to make. You
Oh,
mentioned your
great.
husband's on Medicare,
Yeah.
and that burns me up.
Mhm.
I'm on Medicare myself, but they don't tell you that you have to have that prescription Part D plan, when you sign up, and that there's a 1% per month lifetime penalty.
We
And
got
that
that.
burns me up.
Oh,
And
yeah,
then,
we're paying that.
yeah, and I hate that.
Yeah,
And it's just so crazy. And Medicare is a whole different animal from employer plans or the marketplace. And I work with Medicare folks too. And, I'm just upset with the government about our Medicare. I know
so are
you
we.
Canadians need to come down here and get our folks in order. But,
Yeah,
I just wanted to make that point. But they
and
can get in touch with me, if they want to, email me, Dr. Wendy Labat at drwendylabat.com. I've got my TV show, and that site is FinCures, FINCURES.com. And it has, 12 episodes of personal and business finance, talks about healthcare, credit. It's free to watch, it's global streaming, so they can go on there anytime, 24/7, and, pick an episode or watch all of them, TV binge. And that's a good way. It has all my contact information on there as well.
well, this has been an absolute pleasure getting to know you, to join you now on your mission, because I am positive I'll be able to send people your way because it's such a vital element that people need to know about. And so, again, thank you for joining me on Reach Millions TV. And I look forward to sharing many more success stories with you.
But thank you for having me, and I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.